Hi everyone, my name is David Adams and I am a student at CU Denver. I am working on my bachelor's degree in construction engineering and management with a specialization in structural engineering. I will be graduating in December of 2025. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce to you Jon Villines. Jon Villines is our innovation manager with Mile High Flood District. Please welcome Jon Villines to the podium. His presentation highlights what we have accomplished and where we're going. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David. I have glasses that get darker in the sun, and this light is really bright. So if you start to not be able to see my eyes, that's why. First of all, thanks to all 600 of you guys for coming out today, mainly to listen to me talk about a website, right? You could have been anywhere today, though, seriously, and I'll try to make this as interesting or at least as relevant as possible. As David said, I'm Jon Villines. I'm the innovation manager for the Flood District, and that's a new role for us. It's a new role for me as of this January of this year. And if you'd like to learn more about that role and the kinds of things that I do in that role, I would too. So call me up, we can talk about that, and maybe we can figure it out together. But one thing that I am definitely doing in this role is continuing to kind of oversee the design and the development and the deployment of our custom-built web map application that we call MHFD Confluence. And I want to do a little, as much as I can see you guys, if you can raise your hand if you've heard of Confluence. Okay. Raise your hand again if you or someone at your organization, as far as you know, has signed up for it. Okay, that's pretty good. We will improve on that number even, hopefully by the end of today. Confluence is, or we call it MHFD Confluence, but it's just Confluence for short, is the district's collaborative knowledge platform. And it's something that we built from the ground up, totally from scratch. That's meant to be both internally facing for our staff as well as externally facing for all of our partners. And we have some pretty lofty goals for this program that we're still maybe a little ways from achieving, but broadly speaking, those kind of sift into two categories. One of them is efficiencies, which is pretty self-explanatory, I think, and the other one is insights. And I'll explain that a little bit more. So we're hoping that Confluence can help us to transform raw data, which is this thing that we simultaneously seem to always have too little of and too much of, right? And turn that data into information and understanding. And because if we don't do that, data is just noise, and it can be actually a distraction if it's not actionable. So the reason that we want our data to be actionable is so that we can have more data-informed decisions, which for us is just a fancy way of saying that we'd like to have some proof, some evidence that we're doing the right projects, that we're doing projects that are going to maximize our impact. We have pretty good judgment, we'd like to think, but it's nice to have that be backed up by information that's defensible and repeatable and that we can show to people. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, later on in my presentation, about some things that are upcoming, some new features and things that we have planned for Confluence. But I want to touch on some things that you can do in Confluence right now. One of those is to explore curated data to help better understand our urban stream systems. So we really intend for Confluence now to be the main web map that you guys go to look for the data that you're used to getting from us, things like floodplains and information like that. But there's also a lot of new information that's in Confluence for the first time anywhere. There's a lot of additional information about our projects that we haven't made available before. And there's also what we call problems data, which is basically just digital deliverables from all of our master plans. We've digitized the results of 150 plus some odd studies, and that's what's captured in this problems and actions data that you see in Confluence. So there's a lot that's in there just data-wise. Number two, you can discover, create, and request MHFD projects of all different kinds, and this is geared towards primarily our staff and our local government partners, and I'll touch more on that in a little bit as well. And third, you can collaboratively discuss and manage both planned and ongoing MHFD projects. This is also something that's currently mainly internally facing, and we're planning on rolling this out as quickly as we can to our local government partners, as well as our consultants and contractors. So I'm going to touch on that here shortly as well. So as you might have figured out, Confluence is a really ambitious project for an organization of our size. And it's something that's really more akin to what you would see like a startup trying to do, that has venture capital funding and a staff, things like that. And we're trying to do it with really a skeleton crew of people that this is not their full-time job and not really their training, certainly not mine. But this small team has been able to achieve some really mighty things by working really hard. And when I say really hard, I mean multiple meetings per day, every day, a lot of nights and weekends, a lot of chats at odd hours for 5 years straight with no break. So it's by far the most intensive project that I've ever worked in, but that's because we're committed to making this something really great. Because it is so ambitious and because we have such a small team, it's not been without, flaws and hiccups, and it will probably never be, but we really do believe that it can be something that everyone in this room can get excited about and is a benefit to our work. So we're committed to that, and we think that we will eventually get there. We really need everyone's feedback to make that happen. What's good, what's not, what you want to see. There's a little feedback button on the left-hand side when you go into Confluence. Please use that, and don't be shy about telling us what you really think. All right, so I'm going to give my notes call it a very brief history, but I'll try to be as brief as I can, of Confluence, because for two reasons. One, I think it needs to be celebrated, and two, all of your organizations are probably trying to roll out some kind of software, whether you built it yourself or not, and hopefully there's some lessons learned in the story of what we went through. So in 2019, we had a 5-day intensive design sprint where we started with really nothing. We had an idea of what we wanted to do, maybe some napkin sketches. Shay, I don't know if you're in the audience, but some of those were probably on some of your napkins. And we locked ourselves in a room with some of you guys for 5 days. Started with nothing, went through a really rigorous process, and by the end of that 5 days, we had a fully functioning prototype that our local government partners were able to test, give us live feedback. We were able to make live updates to that feedback, and that 5-day period really set the tone for everything that we've done since then and continues to. So it was really kind of the cornerstone event for the development of the program. And then just 12 months later, 1 year after that, we released the first version of Confluence, which is really an internally facing product. And in the software world, they call that the minimum viable product. What was the simplest thing that we could get out there to let people play with and give us kind of a launch pad for future development. And there was a lot in that initial product that's still in Confluence today, but we're pretty proud of what we were able to do in that first year. In 2021, we released the beta version of our work request and work plan module. Some of you will know what this means, others of you won't, but the work request is the process that we go through every year to take in new projects from our local governments and to plan and budget them and kick them off. So it's really the backbone of our workflow at the district, and it's something that we knew that we needed to update and get into the digital age. So it was the first thing that we kind of bit off in Confluence besides the map. We tested that with a few local governments in 2021, and then we used it for all of our local government work requests in 2022 and 2023. In 2023, we released the internal version of our project management modules, what we call the PM tools. And PM tools includes a lot of data about our projects that we didn't have consistently available before. Things like status and phase, schedule, cash flow, budgeting, task management. People had these things, but it wasn't in a consistent format and certainly wasn't reportable. And now it is. And we have that information at the individual project level as well as at the multi-project or the portfolio level. You're looking at a couple of the portfolio views right here. We're still refining this internally, and especially our data. We're trying to kind of make sure that it's complete and accurate before we really kind of show it to the public. But we do want to get this tool into the hands of as many of you as possible as soon as we can, and I'll touch on that here in a minute. This one is kind of for the data wonks in the audience, if there are any, but it's also for any organization that's struggling with getting their data organized. And if you're not the person at your organization that's struggling with that, I guarantee you that someone in your organization is. And so this was a really big deal for us that this year we were finally able to combine a lot of our different databases and programs into a single database that we control, that we have control over the structure of and the security of. And it's essentially eliminated redundancy and duplication in our data, which is really a lot more exciting than it sounds. And it sets us up really well, not just for Confluence, but for the whole future of wanting to be a data-driven organization. This was another thing with a lot of folks in our teams going well outside of their training and their job descriptions to make this happen. So I want to recognize the work that they did there. And finally here for my timeline, the last piece of Confluence that was planned in that original design sprint that we are still developing is what we call the Watershed Explorer. And this is our attempt to go beyond a static web map with just a kind of a stack of layers, which is essentially what Confluence has today, and to help us to tell that story of our watersheds through the lens of things like the 5 elements. We're going to start doing this by using Confluence as the home for all of our digital master planning and our stream assessment deliverables, so that instead of a PDF or a story map, you'll be able to go to Confluence and see a consistent and interactive view of essentially everything that we know about our urban stream systems and the work that we might be involved with in those. So it's a big lift. There's a lot of things that could be involved with that, and we've been kind of planning and prototyping that for several years. And we're excited to start the development of that this year and hopefully have something to show at least our planning partners maybe this time next year. So that brings us up to pretty much the present day. And just before I close, I want to touch on some new and upcoming features in the system. The first one is PM tools for local governments. So this is what I mentioned before. As our project managers continue to refine their data and add the local government staff to our project teams, local government PMs will be able to go into Confluence and see exactly the same view of our project management information that our managers use to manage projects. So we'll all be kind of playing from the same sheet of music when it comes to what the status of a project is, what the budget is, which agreements have been executed, the task items that are outstanding. You can have discussions about it, and all of that stuff is reportable. So the goal of that is to really help kind of elevate our discourse when we have time to spend actually together. We can be talking about adding value and creative ideas rather than just kind of level setting on where we are with the basics of the project. So we think this is really going to be a big improvement and something that people are going to be excited to use once we get it in a state where we're ready to reveal it to the world. And we do want to get this into the hands of our consultants and contractors as well as quickly as we can, so that'll be happening after we do this local government rollout. Next one is the upcoming projects list. If you're a project partner of ours, you're probably familiar with the new projects list that Dave puts out every year, which is a PDF of any projects that we expect to go to design or construction contracting in the next year. The problem with that, it was a great tool, but the problem was that it was pretty much out of date as soon as we published it, right? Now that we have the PM tools, we have all that information in a digital format already that our managers are updating constantly. So we just produce this list, it's on the website now, anyone can go and look at it, and you can see any of our projects that have yet to be assigned a consultant or a contractor, along with all the other information about when they might start, their value, the scope of work, as much as we know, the location, all those things. You can sort it, you can filter it, you can download it into a spreadsheet, you can email it to your boss, whatever you want to do. We think it's a much better way to help our project partners engage with us in work. So go in and check that out. Next one is effective model download. So today you have to email somebody, usually Kristen or Dan, and bug them to get your FEMA effective hydraulic model. In the next few months, you'll be able to just log in yourself and download the hydraulic model. We'll know who you are and what you downloaded. And then Dan and Kristen can have some more time to spend with their kids. So this is a nice self-service option for everybody and something that we think a lot of people are going to benefit from. The work request enhancements, I'm not going to go into detail here, except to say that in the past few years we've learned a lot about how to improve this process. It is kind of complicated. We try to streamline it as much as we can and make a lot of large and small improvements to it. So if you're part of this process of work requests with us, you can expect to hear more about that and get some training in the coming months. This is one that I'm really excited about because I think it's a great feature. It's our integration with Earth views. So We've been partnering with Earthviews, who in turn partners with one of our local consultants, Olson Ingenuity, to do 360 imagery in the stream channel. So think Google Street View for the stream. You can kind of walk up and down the stream channel, remotely. You can see in 360 degrees the bed and the banks and the veg. And not only do you not have to get your boots dirty, you don't have to go into the field at all, and you get a better view than, honestly, I would get, because I don't climb down into the mud when I go to the field. That's why I'm not doing that job anymore, I think, probably. But we're excited to put this in front of everyone and alongside the other information that we're serving in Confluence. And Olson has put this together in a lot of places already. It's in Simswa, it's in Boulder, Westminster, Plum Creek, the Highline Canal, probably a couple of others. And I can say from my experience, I think when you guys see it, if it's not available in your area, you're going to want it to be. So you can reach out to me or to Olson, and we can talk about making that happen. This is another really cool one, historic aerials from Nearmap. Nearmap is the imagery provider that we use for high-frequency, high-resolution aerials. So they fly the whole flood district 3 times a year, and this is our current base map in Confluence. So when you zoom all the way in, you're seeing basically a real-time view of the ground. And this is free and available to anyone. It's a great feature that anyone in any industry honestly can benefit from. And we're adding historic aerials going back to 2014 in most parts of the district. So that's going to be really great to be able to see changes over time, before and afters for projects and development and a lot of different use cases. So we encourage people to check that out. The historic aerials should be available sometime this year as well. Another feature that I want to point out because it's awesome is the 3D terrain. And this is in Confluence now. If you right-click and hold your mouse and drag anywhere on the map, you enter this 3D terrain view, which just basically overlays the Nearmap imagery onto the LiDAR. So you can see channel features, you can see the floodplain terraces, you can see the overall watershed relief really well, and it's also just the most fun way to interact with a map, in my opinion. So I would suggest giving that a try. Document search by stream, this is something that a lot of people come to our website for, is to download as-builts or design reports or master plans. There's a separate app for that now. It's a little bit clunky. We're going to integrate that into Confluence and make it smoother and make it available alongside everything else, and we plan to do that sometime this year. And then new data layers. This is my last slide here. We're adding new data to Confluence all the time, and I want to point out a few of them. One of them is values at risk. So we're starting by showing the structures, roads, and trails that are in the regulatory floodplain. And soon, as soon as we can, we hope to augment that with depth and velocity information and shear stress and things like that to help you kind of better understand risk. And David and Jeff's presentation later this afternoon is going to talk about that, so don't miss that one. Social Vulnerability Index, or SOVI. This is a measure that FEMA and a lot of different agencies use to indicate how resilient and vulnerable a community is to a disaster, including flood. So we think this is going to be really helpful during the work request process this year. Routine maintenance, we are enhancing our routine maintenance data with more details about the frequency of work, the schedule, and what exactly crews are doing, so keep an eye out for that. Critical facilities, we're trying to map all the critical facilities across the district to help our floodplain managers and emergency managers with their operations. So take a look at that, and if there's anything missing from that, we'd really love to know so that we can make sure that data set is complete. And finally, swim design points. Similar, this is kind of the hydrology equivalent to the self-serve hydraulic models that I mentioned before. Soon, sometime this year, you'll be able to go in, click on a swim design point in Confluence and get the effective discharge at that location. And that also sets us up really well for a potential live or living hydrology district-wide in the future if we decide to go that way. So this QR code just takes you to the Confluence website. You can go to it on your phone if you want, but it's a little bit better on the desktop. Just go to our website, click on the little yellow link at the top, or go to confluence.mhfd.org. We think that there's something for almost everyone in there now, or there will be by the end of the year, so if you haven't checked it out recently, please do. And thank you, and we'll see you in Confluence.